There's a lot of bad personal finance advice online that may be getting in the way of your success. So today I am going to be debunking 5 personal finance myths that are probably holding you back. There's a lot of personal finance jargon on the internet, but here at Break Your Budget, we cut through the crap and focus on getting the basics right. You need to be really careful who you take advice from online, specifically if it pertains to investments, the stock market, or anything that comes with significant financial risk. Social media has created this environment for people with bad intentions to lead you askew. And I hold a personal belief that anybody online offering financial guidance or financial tips or financial education in any way should have some degree of formal financial education. So, for the sake of qualifying myself, I have a finance degree. I also worked in finance for 5 years and I took and passed level 1 of the CFA. The CFA is the Chartered Financial Analyst exam. There are actually 3 exams. I only took one because I ended up pursuing a different career path. Clearly, here I am on social media. But if you know, you know, passing these exams is not easy. The pass rate is like 32%. So it took a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of studying in order to pass that test. So as a result of all of that, I do have a formal financial education. And because of that, I can always tell when somebody offering tips or guidance or advice online does not. The myths that I'm going to share today are largely a result of bad advice circulating online. So hopefully these help demystify some of the things that you may be hearing. And with that, let's just get right into it. Myth number 1 is that you are screwed if you're in your 30s or your 40s and you haven't started investing. The best time to start investing was yesterday, but the second best time to start is today. I do see a lot of fear mongering online saying that if you're in your 30s or your 40s and you haven't started yet, it's just too late. And while I do understand the sentiment behind that, it's just objectively not true. Yes, if you start investing in your 20s, specifically your early 20s, you will have to invest less money over time to reach the same milestones and benchmarks as if you were to start investing in your 30s or your 40s and invest twice as much. But starting a little bit later doesn't automatically doom you. And you can still be perfectly financially successful if you even just start your entire financial journey in your 30s or your 40s, let alone just investing. I find that this language around it being too late can be really discouraging and make it feel like doing anything is pointless because you're already behind. And so I'm really trying to move away from this idea that it's too late to do anything. But when it comes to investing, let's illustrate an example here. If you start investing early at 25, you can retire with well over $1 million. The unfortunate reality is that if you start investing 10 years later at 35 and you follow the same course, you'll end up with just about half as much compared to if you were to start at 25. So yes, those years do make a difference. And in order to catch up and end up with the same amount of money at the same age, if you were to start 10 years later, you would have to essentially double your contributions. But if you're in your 30s or even your 40s and you let this idea that it's too late to get started and you'll never catch up stop you from investing at all, and instead put that money in like a high yield savings account, you'll end up with less money overall compared to any of those scenarios. So don't let this idea that it's too late stop you, because it's never too late to start investing. You are not too old, and getting started is better than doing nothing at all. Myth number 2 is that if you are investing, you should just hire a financial advisor to do it for you. This one is super important to emphasize because I feel like there really is a myth circulating that investing is really hard and you're better off just outsourcing it to a financial advisor who's smarter and knows more and can just do it for you. And just to be clear, I do think that a financial advisor can be a great tool to add to your financial toolkit, especially if you're someone who comes into a large sum of money, or maybe you get an inheritance or become a super high earner. But for most of us, myself included, it really doesn't make any sense to be paying a financial advisor 1% of your assets under management annually in order to put your money usually in just a regular index fund or ETF. Now, don't get me wrong, because I do know that someone watching this is going to be a financial advisor and they're going to be upset and tell me that a lot of financial advisors can add a ton of value. And I don't disagree with that. I do think that there are some financial advisors who are exceptional and who do provide more value than what you're paying them. But they're the exception, not the rule. And there are many financial advisors who have misguided intentions. They're trying to sell you products that you don't need because they make commission. And a lot of times they're not putting your money into investment products that you couldn't access or otherwise choose yourself with just a little bit of investment education. I actually paid a financial advisor about 2.5 years ago to put together a financial plan for me, and I was incredibly unimpressed with what she gave to me. All they really did was take my information and plug it into a system and spit out a portfolio that I had already built myself. And on top of that, I was going to have to pay them 1% to manage that money for me. Why would I do that? So instead of going that route, especially if you're early on in your financial journey and you don't have a ton of assets, I would recommend that you just take some time to learn the basics of investing. So you can take an investing class. I really like Friends That Invest. I think that Sim is a great resource. You can go to YouTube Academy. There's tons of videos on YouTube from qualified individuals explaining the basics of investments, or you can just go on to brokerage sites and use the investor education resources that they make available. I personally am a huge fan of the Vanguard investor education site. I'll make sure that it's linked in the show notes because there's so much information in there around how to construct a portfolio, basic investment concepts, and all of that information is available to you for free. Investing really isn't as hard as you think, and honestly, you gain confidence investing when you actually do it for yourself. I do have a video where I break down my entire investment portfolio, so I'll also make sure that that is linked on the screen somewhere if you are interested in watching it. Myth number 3 is that credit cards are bad. This one kills me because credit cards, when used correctly, can actually be a tool that helps accelerate your wealth building progress for a few key reasons. First, and in my opinion, most importantly, credit cards can help you build a strong credit score. And I like to think of my credit score as my adult GPA. Having a strong credit score can help you get approved for loans. It can help you get approved for your apartment, for a mortgage, or secure lower interest rates if you need to finance anything. Beyond that, credit cards offer tons of rewards, including purchase protection, all of which can help you save money on things that you were already planning to spend money on. For example, and I feel like this one is pretty obvious, but I use travel rewards credit cards. And so whenever I'm out and about buying things, I'm collecting points that I can then use to book flights and hotels on travel that I was already planning on doing. This saves me thousands of dollars per year on flights and on trips, and I don't have to do anything extra in order to do that. The key that I really want to emphasize is that credit cards really only benefit you when they are used properly. This means that you need to be paying the card off in full on time every single month, never carrying a balance, and never putting anything on that card that you couldn't pay off in full at that moment. I treat my card like a debit card. So I'm pretty much paying my credit cards off every week or every 2 weeks when I'm tracking my expenses. What I really want to emphasize is that inherently credit cards are not good or bad. They are tools that can help you when they are leveraged correctly. If you want a full video about credit cards, let me know because I know they can be a convoluted topic. Credit scores can be a little bit confusing, and it's always helpful to hear what other people have in their wallet. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in learning more about credit cards. Myth number 4 is that renting is throwing money away. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one because over the last couple of weeks and months, I have spent so much time creating videos around this entire renting versus buying conversation. But what I really want to emphasize is that renting an apartment is not flushing your money down the toilet because there is an inherent cost of living regardless of if you rent or buy. The challenge that I have with the home ownership conversation is that people seem to lose their ability to think logically or critically when it comes to home ownership in the pursuit of equity. And I genuinely believe that this boils down to a misunderstanding of what equity actually is. I do have an entire video where I debunk the myths around equity, but the TLDR is that all of the sunk costs associated with purchasing a home, so interest on your mortgage, property taxes, HOA fees, maintenance fees, all of these costs erode your ability to build equity. This notion that if you rent, you are financially behind, and if you rent, you're not able to build wealth in the same way as owning a home is just outdated and objectively not true, especially in 2025. When you actually run the math, in many places, not all, but in many, the argument for renting holds much stronger. And it's just because with really high interest rates and really overinflated home prices, the math for buyers is just not making sense. The key though is that if you are someone who is renting, that you are continuing to invest your money in the stock market, because that way you're building wealth even while you are putting money towards a rental. There are tons of benefits to renting and towards buying. Again, I have plenty of videos where I talk about this. So if you're interested, I'll make sure they're linked on the screen and also in the description. And last but not least, myth number 5 is that being able to pay for something is the same as being able to truly afford it. Lifestyle creep is your budget's worst nightmare. One of the biggest financial mistakes that I see young people make is upgrading their lives too quickly. It's super normal to get a raise and to want to improve your life in some way. But what I really want to emphasize, and I think what gets lost in the conversation of gradually improving your life, is just because you can make the payment for something doesn't mean you can truly afford it. For example, getting a raise and increasing your rent and upgrading to a nicer apartment sounds good and great, but there's actually no point in doing that if it erodes your ability to enjoy your life outside of that apartment because you don't have any money left. There's no point in buying or financing a luxury car if 50% of your income is going towards that payment. And those are just 2 examples. They're the 2 examples that I see most commonly in young people. You have to look at making these decisions within the context of your budget, both in the present, but also the opportunity cost of that money in the future. One of the ways that I have really avoided lifestyle creep as I have substantially increased my income from my late 20s into my now early 30s is sticking to a monthly and annual budget using the personal finance dashboard. One of the best parts of this tool is the annual spending plan tab, and it allows me to map out what my costs will look like, as well as scenario plan around changing costs and how those changing costs would impact my living expenses and my total expenses for the year, but also my financial goals and how much money I'm able to put towards those financial goals if there is a proportion of my essential or non-essential expenses that change. If you are an adult with a job who is making money with the intention of increasing that income and you plan to upgrade your lifestyle in any way, which is 100% of the people who are watching this video, you need to have a tool where you can plan out and contextualize these upgrades within the context of your spending. The personal finance dashboard is literally the only tool on the market that I have seen where you can actually do this in an easy and simple way. Obviously, it's always linked in the show notes if you want it, but if you have questions about how I do that, please let me know because I would love to do a video where I explain lifestyle upgrades and really illustrate how they can erode your budget if you are not careful. It is totally okay to make upgrades in your life as you make more money. And I honestly have done it plenty over the last couple of years. But you really have to be thoughtful about these upgrades that you make and do them gradually. Because if you make too many upgrades too fast, you'll find yourself in a position where you're chained to a job or where you're not able to actually reach any financial goals because all of your money is going towards random payments for things that you don't actually care about. Long-term financial success is a result of implementing healthy financial habits consistently over a long period of time. The funny thing is, the internet really does try to make it more complicated than it actually is. And I genuinely believe that this keeps so many people stuck in analysis paralysis when it comes to their financial situation. The formula is so simple. Spend less than you earn and save and invest the difference. That's what I'm trying to demystify here at Break Your Budget. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Make sure you like it, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and let me know if there is a topic that I've mentioned that you want me to elaborate more on. And with that, I will catch you in the next video.